Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today we're looking at the 2012 to 2015 series Earth 2, part of DC's The New 52. And not the TV show with Tim Curry. A very timely reference that I'm sure everybody gets. In some ways, Earth 2 was the original Earth. The company All American Publications broke serious ground for the genre when it brought together a number of its superheroes to create the first superhero team, the Justice Society of America. The JSA weren't stated to be on a unique Earth different from our own, but over time those characters fell off in popularity and new superheroes took their place. Eventually, desiring to bring those characters back from the relative dead, the now DC Comics reintroduced the JSA in an issue of the Justice League of America as existing in a unique parallel universe, with its own Earth that the comic would come to call Earth 2, TWO. Earth 2 would continue to exist for years after that, telling the stories of Golden Age characters, most of whom were kept more or less unique to that universe. But Earth 2 would get some doubles like Superman and Batman. As all things DC tend to, this of course converges at Crisis on Infinite Earths, which brought an end to Earth 2 and moved a number of those characters into the main DC universe, largely to avoid confusing readers trying to keep straight what story happened in what universe. But if you've been watching other videos on my channel, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you already know that with the birth of the New 52, Earth 2 was reborn, a modern homage to those classic comics. But see, this one's different, because now it uses the number 2. And other means as well, and if you want to find out what those are, then stick around as we take this away. The comic opens on War. The New 52 had a focus on Darkseid as the ultimate villain. From his planet called Apocalypse, he waged war on planet after planet using his army of mutant pawns, the Parademons. 5 years in the past of the New 52, Apocalypse came to the main DC version of Earth, let's call it Earth 0, and was defeated by the heroes that would come to be known as the Justice League, as shown in the first 6 issues of the New 52 Justice League title. But this title, and a few others, show us that at about the same time, Darkseid was also waging war on Earth 2. Unlike its main universe counterpart though, Earth 2 only had 3 real superheroes looking after it at the time. That being DC's trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Technically, there were a small handful of others, Batman's daughter Helena Wayne, serving as his junior sidekick Robin, and Superman's cousin Kara would be Supergirl, but had been kept a secret until after the war broke out. There's also Terry Sloan, but calling him a hero is pretty generous. In the original timeline, Sloan was the first Mr. Terrific, a rich and highly accomplished man who turned his life to heroism and charity, encouraging the youth into positive action with his motto, fair play. In this version of Earth 2, in a more cynical time period where the idea of an actually philanthropic billionaire is much less plausible, Sloan is depicted as much more narcissistic and cruel. He had originally sold himself as wanting to help, even occasionally joining the Trinity, or Kryptonian as Sloan calls them, on missions against Darkseid's forces. Convinced he knew better than the 3, though, he ended up betraying them in an effort to blow up the Parademon control towers Darkseid's forces had built around the globe. This left massive, continuously burning fire pits in the place of the towers, and also proved not to be effective, as Darkseid just replaced them all. It's Batman who finally figures out a way to do the Independence Day gambit, implanting a virus on the towers that will disable all of them at once and make any new towers added as replacements also useless. With Sloan having gone into hiding and Supergirl halfway across the world protecting a nuclear missile transport, that leaves just Superman and Wonder Woman to create a giant distraction for Batman by fighting a massive Parademon army while Robin provides air support. Darkseid's General Steppenwolf appears during the battle, stabbing Wonder Woman in the back and killing her, while the Parademons finally manage to overwhelm Superman, apparently killing him as well. Batman manages to plant the virus, but the tower explodes when he does, killing him and finishing off the Kryptonian. Supergirl attempted to fly back when she realized her cousin was dying, abandoning the nuclear transport, which then gets attacked by parademons and the nuke explodes, killing all the American soldiers guarding it, including one Sergeant Al Pratt. Or does it? Supergirl is too late to save Kal, but she joins with Helena to chase a figure through a boom tube, which will trap them on Earth Zero to star in the World's Finest series that I covered in my previous video. And with that, the world lost all of its superheroes, or wonders as they'll be called in this series, but without the control towers, the parademons were stopped and Steppenwolf was trapped on Earth and forced to go into hiding. We then jump 5 years into the future to see that Earth 2 is still there, and in fact has even moved on from the war. But before I move on, I have to point out this excellent Easter egg of an advertised boxing match between Grant and Montez. Ted Grant was the original Wildcat, and the other guy would be Juan Montez, the father of the second Wildcat, Yolanda Montez. Unfortunately, neither will really appear in this comic beyond this excellent little nod here, but I guess it still promises of what could have been. Right at this point, Mr. Terrific shows up. The second Mr. Terrific. Well, both of them, really. Okay, let's try this again. Michael Holt, the Mr. Terrific of the New 52, in his own self-titled series, disappeared down a quantum tunnel to whereabouts unknown. Turns out, he ended up here on Earth 2, but Terry Sloan was waiting for him. Both Holt and Sloan had jumped into something they called the Ninth Dimension, which had granted them glimpses of the future, allowing Sloan to know that Holt would be appearing right here and now, so he arrives in time to ambush Michael, knock him out, and abduct him. We'll sort of get back to that later. For now, we'll also meet Alan Scott, CEO of the Global Broadcasting Company, who is on his way to China to meet his lover and potential fiancé, Sam Zhao. The two leave for a long-awaited vacation by train, giving Alan the opportunity to finally propose to his boyfriend. Only the very moment he starts to do that, their train suddenly explodes. Scott, alone, survives the crash, thanks to a mysterious green fire that speaks to him, heals his body, and imbues him with its power, turning him into the Green Lantern. And that's no cap, despite the all caps. Yeah. That was probably a predictable outcome, both from the green shirt he's been wearing the entire time, and also because Alan Scott is the original Green Lantern, from decades before Hal Jordan and his Lantern Corps. But here they've ditched his original outfit for one more resembling the New 52 Hal Jordan. I actually do like this outfit, but honestly, I think Scott had one of the coolest outfits out of any of those early heroes, and certainly of the JSA, save maybe Sandman. They've thankfully gone back to his classic look in recent years, and I have to say, how many superhero outfits still look this cool 80 years later? Not many. The green fire, just called the Green, is the power of the Earth itself, and it tells Alan that he needs a token close to his heart to focus this power, so he uses the ring he was attempting to use to propose to Sam, creating his Green Lantern ring. Around the time this is happening, we check in with a young man named Jay Garrick, just as his girlfriend is leaving him because she believes he's going nowhere in life. As he sits and broods about this later that night, he starts to wish on a shooting star, only it turns out to not be a shooting star. Like a comet, it comes crashing down to the Earth nearby, and Jay discovers it's actually the god Mercury. Mercury was seen during that opening battle earlier, revealing to us by communicating with Diana that all the gods of Themyscira were also fighting Darkseid's forces, but they were also all dying in the process. Mercury alone seems to have survived, but he is now dying as well, and he used the last of his energy to reach Earth and a worthy soul capable of taking his power. For that, he has chosen, or is now choosing, Jay Garrick, giving him the speed of a god, and also a new outfit. Not as far removed from his classic look as Lanterns, but even though they have a literal excuse for Jay to keep Mercury's helmet that he has in, his original classic costume, they stick this silly laser tag helmet on his noggin instead. So Jay starts running, and runs, pushing the limit of just how fast he can go, but finds stopping to be difficult. The comic will make kind of a big deal about how bad he is at stopping for about 12 issues or so, and then seemingly just forget it was ever a problem and never bring it up again. Which honestly is fine, I didn't really need that story. At his first failed stop after running, the Flash finds himself unexpectedly all the way in Poland, which is revealed to him by the Earth 2 version of Kendra Munoz Saunders, aka Hawkgirl, who looks amazing. Seriously, this is definitely my favorite Hawkgirl outfit, ever. She looks like such a badass. She was also my main in Injustice Mobile. Another great timely reference. I'm full of them today. She also has, ironically, no patience for Jay, which is pretty great. While they stand still and talk so that Jay can catch up to the reality of what is happening, the world around them suddenly begins to die, the grass and trees just withering away. This is because when the Green picked its champion in Alan Scott, something called the Gray picked its own champion called Grundy, looking a bit like a Black Lantern Grundy, crossed with a dominatrix. Maybe that's just a Cenobite. Cenobites. Cinegrundy is sucking the life out of the planet all across the world, but attacks Washington, D.C. directly, prompting Hawkgirl, Flash, and Green Lantern to fly back to America and deal with the creature. The world government has their own plans though, sending in the World Army to deal with the situation. The World Army is headed by Commander Amar Khan, who has the plan to send in the now Captain Pratt to deal with the situation. And yes, this is the same Al Pratt from earlier. And he did somehow survive that nuclear explosion we saw, but not only that, he seemed to gain superpowers from it, becoming the World Army's secret wonder, the Atom. With another nice little main universe nod, I guess, in that he's also Captain Atom, in a sense, just not that Captain Atom. Al and Kendra also have history, as Kendra apparently used to work for the World Army in secret as well, and he's primarily here to bring her back, though he also is supposed to stop Grundy, which proves to be a lot harder than just stomping on him. Terry Sloan is brought in by the world government to join Commander Khan, but Sloan has his own plan to stop Grundy, firing nukes at him. Typical. Not that the heroes are having much luck stopping Grundy on their own. While the others keep Grundy busy, Al attempts to communicate with the Gray the way he did with the Green, and learns that it just wants to finish destroying the Earth so it can start everything over again. It attempts to tempt Scott into letting it have its way by giving him a ghost of Sam to be with for eternity, but GL sees through the illusion and breaks free. He instead responds by flying Grundy up into space, where he also manages to grab the nukes headed towards them and send them off into space before trapping Grundy up on the moon. Scott's power burns away with this effort, and he falls back toward the Earth, where he's caught by Kendra. They regroup with Flash, and Scott realizes his power comes from the Earth, which is why they faded when he flew too far away from it. He then uses that knowledge to regrow the damage done by Grundy, but then instead of starting a super team with his fellow heroes, he says he prefers to work alone and flies off. Not wanting their alliance to go to waste, Kendra sends another contact of hers, a man named Khalid bin Hassan, to keep an eye on Jay, which was a good idea as the world government has figured out somehow that Jay is the Flash, and when he goes to visit his mom, they spring a trap on him to try and bring him in to work for the World Army. Khalid grabs Jay and Miss Garrick and teleports them out of there into a magical realm, because Khalid is this universe's Dr. Bong. I'm sorry, I mean Dr. Fate. Sorry, wrong bellhead. You can understand my confusion. It will eventually be revealed that Khalid and Kendra were partners in crime, grave robbers or tomb raiders. In an effort to steal from some ancient ruins, Khalid stumbled upon the helmet of Naboo, an ancient and powerful sorcerer who lives on through his helmet and endows the wearer with his powers. At the same time Khalid was finding the helmet, Kendra was being transformed by unknown energies, granting her wings. They were then both captured by the World Army and forced to work for them, which is where they met Al Pratt, but, you know, that's not all that important. As for Khalid, while the helmet did grant him great power, it also drove him insane, and so he sent it away, locking it inside the Tower of Fate, a twisting, multi-dimensional labyrinth located in the same netherworld that Khalid and the two Garricks find themselves in now. But also here is Wotan, the first enemy of Dr. Fate, both in terms of appearances and in this story, as Wotan knew Naboo when the ancient sorcerer was still alive, and has survived throughout the centuries by constantly changing bodies, becoming both man and woman at various points throughout the years. What? A comic suggesting a person can change between man and woman? Wotan? More like Woketon, am I right? Yeah? Okay. Wotan takes Mama Garrett captive to force Jay and Khalid into the Tower of Fate to retrieve the helmet of Naboo so Wotan can have the helmet and its power for himself. Or herself, or whatever they are right now. Inside the tower, the helmet is protected by a giant red beast, but Flash keeps it distracted while Khalid hunts down the helmet. Only, instead of just retrieving it, Khalid decides to finally embrace his role as Dr. Fate and puts the helmet on. With his powers unlocked again, he quickly defeats the beast and then attacks Wotan head-on. The fight between the two magicians spills over into the real world, where the World Army attempts to shut them both down. But Flash and Green Lantern show up to keep the army at bay, while Fate makes short work of Wotan. With that, the group of heroes gather together at Al's apartment, minus only Hawkgirl. Alan and Kendra had been having an adventure at the same time as all of this, as at Sam's funeral, Sam's father revealed to Alan that Sam may have been the target of the attack on the train. GL then attempted to hunt down why this would be the case, even caving eventually and seeking Kendra's help to investigate the mystery, then ended up leaving her to continue hunting for answers while he went to help Dr. Fate and Flash. Unfortunately, the series will just kind of abandon this story arc, and as far as I've been able to determine, we never actually learn the answer to why anyone wanted to attack Sam. Regardless, the effort to solve Sam's murder was enough to convince Al that he actually could be part of a team, and he agrees to join the other Wonders to form a society of those seeking justice. We can call it the New Wonders of the World. Yep, that's definitely it. And no sooner have they decided to join forces than they find themselves needed, as Steppenwolf has reappeared in a fictional country called Durain, having murdered the head of state and taken control as the country's new leader. In an effort to get a positive media spin on their new supergroup, the three Wonders attempt to stop the war before it even gets started, moving into Durain and attacking Steppenwolf's troops. They're interrupted in their efforts by the World Army, including our friend Captain Atom, as well as the Sandmen, who have been around in the story a bit, though I haven't really bothered mentioning them. And new to this series character, Red Arrow. He doesn't last for super long. Before these two teams can really start fighting though, they are also interrupted by Steppenwolf's Dogs of War. Three superpowered people, including the mystical Beguiler, who is able to turn Fate's magic back on him, Bedlam, who is able to control people's wills, and Brutal, who is able to fly, is super fast, insanely strong, and fires Omega Beam-like death rays from his eyes. Don't think too much about that though, I'm sure it's just all coincidence. These three make short work of all the gathered Wonders, but only actually kill a few of the unnamed Sandmen and leave everybody else alive for unknown reasons before flying off. The dogs then join Steppenwolf in destroying the rest of the World Army invasion fleet, who they have much less qualms about killing, ending the war only minutes after it started. But getting a second win, Green Lantern goes after Steppenwolf directly, only to end up being beaten to death by Steppenwolf and Brutal. With GL dead, Steppenwolf declares victory, but Brutal apparently has other ideas, ripping off Steppenwolf's head, causing a giant explosion of energy at the death of such a powerful being that rips a giant gash in the planet. And it's revealed that under his armor, Brutal is actually Superman? This corrupted Superman, loyal to Darkseid, begins taking over the Earth. The fire pits across the planet begin spewing out parademons, and they fly out in droves to serve under this Superman's rule. Supes also grabs the two Misters Terrific because he needs them to build a new mother box, the powerful technology of the new gods that can create the boom tubes. Holt had been rescued from Sloan by Khan in the Sandmen, who also freed him from Sloan's brainwashing, but nothing came of that story before Superman grabbed them and Bedlam took control of both of them. So back to brainwashing. Mr. Terrific really getting the short end of the stick on this series. But New Hope appears in the form of Batman! A much more grizzled, buff Batman appears in the World Army's Arkham base, in the underground sections where special prisoners are kept. He's actually made a couple appearances before this, saving Captain Atom and Hawkgirl on separate occasions. But now the story focuses on him as he sets about releasing inmates from Arkham. The first person he frees is the Queen of Atlantis, Aquawoman, looking for her assistance against this new Superman. The second he frees is Jimmy Olsen, who has some kind of analytical internet-related superpower. The last person Batman came for was the Joker, but not to free him. Instead, he just shoots the clown repeatedly while he's still in suspended animation. Well, that got dark. Bats then gets a couple additions to his new team that he wasn't expecting. First is Red Tornado, who shows up trying to stop him from freeing the prisoners. This Red Tornado was part of the world government's Project Red, which also created Red Arrow, and another person I'm not gonna bother mention. But more than that, this Red Tornado is the mind of Lois Lane implanted into a robot body, so she can be born again. This is largely possible thanks to the backstory given in World's Finest, where Mercury came to Lois as a child and made her one with the spirit of the East Wind, just so she could be resurrected later in life when the world had need of her. They also discover, even deeper below Arkham, a special project from Sloan, a young man who turns out to be another Kryptonian. This is Val-Zod, whose house on Krypton had fallen out of favor for speaking truth to power, is all the info we're given about it. But Val-Zod was a childhood friend of Kara, and perhaps because of that, he was chosen, just like Kal-El, Kara, and an unnamed fourth Kryptonian, to be sent to Earth. And his arrival was also seen in that backstory in World's Finest. And Batman's backstory was yet another backstory we got there. Well, this Batman's backstory. More or less. Because it turns out that this Batman is Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father. You might have guessed that from the Flashpoint looking costume, but you know. When Thomas Wayne was a young man, he saved the life of a mobster, and in thanks, the mobster brought Tommy into the lifestyle of wealth, drugs, and other sins. Eventually, after Bruce was born, Tommy attempted to cut himself free from that lifestyle, but the mob boss didn't like that, and that's why the Waynes ended up being gunned down. Only, as we now know, Tommy somehow survived the attack, and used his doctor connections at the hospital to disappear, thinking he needed to stay dead or else the mafiosos would try for Bruce again. Eventually he came back to Gotham and used a drug called Miraclo to try and give himself the super strength he needed in order to get revenge for his family. Bruce, as Batman, actually figured this out while he was still alive and confronted his pop. But sickened by what his father had become, Bruce cut Thomas out of his family and went on pretending that he had died that night in Crime Alley. With Bruce dead now, Thomas has returned, attempting to live in honor of the great fight his son put up as Batman, taking up the mantle and returning to using Miraclo to give himself the strength he needs to be a superhero. The focus then shifts to stopping the new Superman. Hoping he'll have Superman's usual weakness to magic, Dr. Fate goes out to face him, but only ends up getting his head beaten in so badly that his insanity becomes the worst it's ever been. Flash tries to fight him, and Supes breaks Jay's ankles and captures him, to let Beguiler torture him. The Atom also attempts to fight Superman, but Supes just lasers off Atom's arm and then proceeds to beat the giant to death with his own arm? Holy shit, that's freaking awesome. Go Supes. Yeah, I'm cheering for evil. Okay, it's fine, whatever. Thanks to Bedlam controlling Sloan, the villains learn about Val-Zod, and that leads them to learning about Batman. So Supes heads to the Batcave to shut their little team down. But there, he runs into Red Tornado, and realizing she's Lois, he stops his own invasion force to protect her, then flies off with her to show her to his parents. It seems Ma and Pa Kent are still alive somehow. Clearly they've been held captive for a while, and Pa Kent is at his limit of dealing with this twisted evil version of his son and his devotion to Darkseid. This enrages Supes to the point that he laser eyes Pa Kent into dust, proving that there's no way this could possibly be Clark. Around this time, the Green revives Alan, and he joins with Hawkgirl to free Jay, who has already managed to heal from his broken ankles. Flash then gets his revenge on Beguiler by running so fast while holding her that she seems to just fall into the Speed Force, which I guess is enough to kill her. Maybe she becomes the Black Racer. This, combined with a pep talk from Jimmy, finally seems to get to the reluctant Val-Zod, who had some claustrophobia and an aversion to violence. Inspired now, though, he brings the fight straight to Superman, and finally up against someone on his own level, this Superman just falls apart, revealing him to actually be an Earth 2 version of Bizarro. Unable to best a real Kryptonian, Bizarro just crumbles into dust in front of the heroes, and Red Tornado uses her wind to blow away his remains. Which means that in World's Finest, when Kara insisted that she had confirmed beyond a doubt that this definitely was her Superman, she was still wrong. Even though she was right that it was Earth 2. So, I don't know, editors not talking to each other, I'm guessing. The story from here is more or less concluded in Earth 2 World's End, a different comic, so I'll be looking at that in a later video. We do get one final volume here, this one primarily written by Marguerite Bennett of DC Bombshells fame. And like with World's Finest, this volume mostly deals with flashbacks, some of which I've already covered, but also giving us backstories on Darkseid's Furies, who will be important in World's End, as well as introducing us to the other colors of the powers of Earth, like the green, who we've already met, and the gray, who is now called the black with no explanation, as well as the white, the blue, and the red. We also meet each of their champions, and these champions include the Red Beast that was protecting the Tower of Fate, and Sam as the champion of the White, though still no mention as to why he was murdered. Kinda interesting that they did bring him back for a final story in this series, but still didn't answer the main hanging question of this series. But what you gonna do? Because I'm just gonna get to the breakdown. I wish I had better things to say about this series. I'll be honest with you, the first volume was fire. And if I was just reviewing that, I'd be giving this a very high recommendation. But the series fell off very quickly after that, unfortunately. The original premise of forming a new super team from scratch, watching them get their new origins and figure out how to save the world together is a lot of fun and definitely left this feeling like one of the better comics of the New 52. But it feels like DC was focused on the Darkseid storyline, and the second half of the story feels entirely incongruous with the first half of the comic. Like it came out of nowhere and interrupted all the plans for the series, and not for the better. But despite my disappointment at the change of trajectory, I can't say this is a bad comic. The art is excellent throughout the run, no matter who is writing, and the story is still pretty strong, even if I think it would have been nice to give this version of the JSA more of a chance to actually establish themselves. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of medium. It's cool to see this modern and unique twist on these classic characters, even if it ended up being a bit of a disappointment in the end. The collected editions get 2 Evil Superman emblems, 2 Val Zod emblems, and 2 Hawkgirl helms. As always, that's moving from bad to good, but honestly nothing too terrible, even if I did use Evil Superman for one of those options. Hey, he beat a guy to death with his own arm. I mean, like, that's worth something. Anyway, that breaks down like this. Volume 4 is the shortest with only 4 issues in an annual, but a very short bonus cover gallery and sketchbook. Volume 3 is 5 issues in an annual, but no other bonuses whatsoever. Volumes 1 and 6 both have 6 issues, a single bonus cover, and a sketchbook, while Volumes 2 and 5 have 7 issues and several bonus covers, with Volume 2 also containing a short sketchbook. Not bad for the B-Sides universe. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I didn't know when I was gonna start all this Earth 2 stuff that there's actually like 2 additional series that I'd never even heard of that I should probably kind of cover if I'm gonna go down this road. So yeah, we got 2 more titles called Earth 2 World's End and Earth 2 Society that are still gonna be coming down the line. Hopefully that's good news though. I also am still hoping to cover Sonic, and actually maybe I already released it, so, you know, either look forward to that or make sure to watch that if it is out. And then as we move into the new year, beyond just covering Earth 2, I'm gonna try to get to some X-Men stories, because you guys always seem to really enjoy that, and I certainly do. So if any of that's exciting for you, or you just enjoyed this video, or you're just feeling the call to action to become a new superhero for a new age, then make sure to click all the like and subscribe and all that so you can help the channel out, and so you can help yourself to make sure to be here next time, and I hope to see you then, right here in the Comic Cave.